weekends. I'm understanding most, or at least half of the country is under some severe weather. So thank you to those of you who made it, and maybe we just have all the folks from the West Coast joining us right now. I'm not sure. But we will, on that note, be recording this webinar and syncing it with the audio and posting it in our media library on the FIATech webpage later this week. So if you can't make it, or if a colleague wanted to and wasn't able to, you can download that, and it'll be stored in the archives on our site at any time. For those of you who are using GoToMeeting for the first time, I just briefly wanted to go through how the system works. You'll notice that you do have a control panel on your screen, which is unique to you. You can at any time, using the grab tab on the left-hand side with an arrow pointing to the right, click on that arrow and you can minimize the control panel and get it out of your way so you have an unobstructed view of the presentation. And if at any time you want to access that panel, you simply click the arrow that will now be pointing to the left, and the screen will reappear on your monitor. We also have a default mute setting, so to reduce noise, all of you are on a mute. If at any time, and we do encourage this, you'd like further clarification or have any questions, please use the Questions tab on the control panel to type in your question at the end of the presentation. Mitch and Igor will be taking the questions and answers. Those will come directly to me, and I will relay them to our presenters. I will not indicate who is asking the question or where that, what company they're from. So please feel free to ask anything candidly that you would like to know more about. I think that's it. I think I want to go ahead and get started and introduce our two presenters. We have Mitch Borislavsky, who's the founder of View by View, which he propelled from its initial role as an architectural visualization service bureau in 1990 to its current status as one of the first companies to have taken BIM through the entire construction process. View by View was recently awarded GSA's multi-year BIM IDIQ. Mitch was born in Poland and educated in Europe, South Africa, and the USA in architecture and construction project management. He is a frequent speaker on digital architecture and BIM, has been involved in international architectural competitions for the last 30 years, and has won several awards, including the 2005 Digi Award for the best use of automation architectural design. His 3D digital work on the greening of the White House is permanently on display at the old Executive Office building at the White House in Washington, D.C. Mr. Starkov, Igor Starkov, has 16 years of international business management experience, of which 9 years were dedicated to the U.S. construction software industry. Igor is the founder and president of Tokmo Solutions, which is a leading provider of software solutions for lean construction, BIM project management, and COBie data integration. Mr. Starkov is a board member of Lean Construction Institute's National Capital Region Chapter. He's a board member of CMAA's National Capital Region Chapter, and he's a board member of DBIA's Mid-Atlantic Region Chapter. He holds a master's in applied mathematics and computer science from Moscow University in Russia and an executive MBA from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Mitch and Igor. And as I shared with our presenters before we got started today, this is obviously a very timely issue and topic, as this has been our highest registration for a webinar in the 2 years we've been promoting webinars and doing them on a weekly basis on Tuesdays here at FIATech. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, and I'll turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone. I'm Igor Starkov, and we have Mitch with me here, my partner, Mitch Borislavsky. The topic for today is Lifecycle BIM data workflow from design through construction and commissioning to facility management and operation and maintenance. And also, we will show how to get the data from the O&M and FM stage and push it back to the design models. So it's the bidirectional way that we will be discussing. So let me start first by telling you a little bit more about our companies. First, about Tokmo, and Mitch will tell you about View by View. COBie is a software company founded 2 years ago in Washington, D.C. We've been working mostly with the large contractors by now, and about 3-4 months ago we started working directly with the owners, Texas A&M University and University of Southern California. Our software provides support for COBie, and I will explain what it is in a few minutes. We integrated with production management, lean production management. We have a 3D-based planning. We provide the data necessary for the post-construction use for the software called EcoDomus to link BIM with the sensors and use it in O&M. And we started by supporting lean construction lab planner systems. So those of you who are interested in lean, please feel free to contact me about this. And now Mitch will tell you a bit more about View by View. Mitch?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Mitch Borislavsky. Actually, I go by Mitch, but my name is Mieczysław Borislavsky. I started using 3D technology some 25 years ago. Matter of fact, we are 20 years in business this month as View by View. And one of the main processes that we actually are involved right now is the BIM process. And we started introducing BIM to the Letterman Digital Arts Center, to George Lucas. Very successful process indeed, and we're going to show you today moving from that process to what we're doing for George Lucas and Spielberg. They're donating most of the funding for the USC new film school and the 4 new buildings being built right now where we are taking BIM to facility management. So yes, we are also been selected as a winner of the IDIQ contract for GSA. So we're looking forward to move forward with BIM and taking BIM to the next step. So I give you back to Igor, and then we're going to demonstrate to you what we are doing.
Yes. The company that also we wanted to introduce is a new company called EcoDomus. It's a company that was formed by COBie and View by View a few months ago, and we created this company just to focus specifically on creating tools for to bring the benefits of BIM to facility management, and the special attention to be paid to energy efficiency and green building. Because we believe that the ability to bring the 3D model, BIM model, as designed and as built, and compare it to what data we get from the sensors and smart meters to see the as operated values brings enormous benefits in order for leak compliance, for energy efficiency, and for many other tasks. But we'll talk about EcoDomus later. First thing that I wanted to start with is start at the early stages of the process, at the design and construction, and the way to manage this is right now is being standardized using the COBie standard. So what is it? This page, if you haven't seen it before, check it out. I just want to read the first paragraph here. It's most contractors require the handover of paper documents containing equipment lists, product data sheets, warranties, etc. This information is essential for the O&M phase and facility management. And so the COBie is not just, some of you have heard the name, they think, oh, it's about BIM for OFM. No, it's really about electronic data handover, all of the data. So submittals, documents, warranty manuals, all of this is a part of the COBie deliverable. How do we get in a situation like this? Like this gentleman's name is Lyle Falk from Corps of Engineers, Fort Lewis District, and this is the picture typical for any new building. You have these boxes of paper, some of it will never be opened, some of it will never be scanned, impossible to query. So now Lyle will have to spend a lot of time to get this data organized, enter it in the IBM Maximo facility management software, and maybe he'll give up on some of these paper-based things because it's just too cumbersome. So in addition to his time spent, what other pains we have for this process? We have data loss, we have recreation, transcription errors, obviously because he has to do that manually. You have to store all that paper that gets lost or damaged. Sometimes it's delivered much later after the occupancy, so facility managers work in the dark basically without knowing what this facility is about. Obviously it costs a lot, and it's almost impossible to maintain the as-built information for later renovation and retrofits. So as you see from this picture, whatever was 70 years ago and now it's almost the same. So COBie is created to change that. Here comes the solution. You have, as designers, provide the floor, space, and equipment layouts electronically. in their BIM model or in the Excel files. Contractors provide makes, models, and serial numbers of installed equipment. Commissioning agents validate the entered information and correct it as needed. And all of this workflow process is electronically managed, and there's no data loss in any of these stages. So it's a digital pipeline. How this information is organized? It's based on the open standard definitions, industry foundation classes, IFC. Those of you who are familiar with BIM know the IFC that is being supported by almost all, probably all of the BIM authoring solutions. But the beauty of COBie is that it can be presented as an IFC file or as Excel, regular Excel, because Excel is the least common denominator, so everyone, even the smallest subcontractor, can manage the Excel files. How it's structured is facility consists of floors served by systems, floors composed of spaces, prototypes. So basically, it's a database that can be presented in Excel format. It doesn't have some information that you would find in the BIM, like for example geometry or something like that. But it takes the slice of the data that is needed for O&M and packages it in easy to manage format. Currently, we are in the COBie version 2 format. It was announced in December, and a few companies, including Tokmo, passed the COBie challenge, which is kind of certification for the software companies to support this standard. These are a couple of sample views, the Excel worksheet views that are in the file. The file itself is 15 or 16 worksheets, and each worksheet is dedicated to a specific item, let's say spaces, components, types of equipment, documents that accompany this document, this Excel file, attributes of the elements. COBie is it's not the replacement of the last-minute data collection. You know, instead of the paper job crawl, you do the electronic job crawl. No, COBie is a phased information delivery. So you break your project timeline into phases, and you make sure that at each phase you got the proper information entered, and that it's compliant with the standards. So you don't have to rename items. You don't have to re-enter them again. A typical example would be is when you have facility managers, construction guys, and designers not talking to each other, you will have the same object named 3 different ways in 3 different packages. And we noticed already that by working with our clients, by establishing this pipeline that goes throughout the whole process and having them all speak the same language, the same nomenclature, you will remove a lot of redundant data reentry. So at each phase, you have specific parameters, what needs to be entered and what needs to be there in the COBie document. This COBie specification that you see in front of you was published in December by Corps of Engineers as the sample contractual agreement that can be put into your regular contract. So if you are wondering, well, I'm an owner, how do I ensure that this COBie process is followed properly? There is a sample for you that you can download from the Building Smart website and look at it and enter in your standard set of documents. One of the sections that I think that people will start paying specific attention is the penalties for not providing the appropriate information on time. So as an owner who says, well, why do I have to pay for all of these mistakes that my architects and contractors do? I better make sure that they don't do these mistakes. So you provide these kind of penalties as incentives for providing more intelligent data entry. So you will find all of this in the COBie specification document. What we do in regard to supporting COBie is we realize that for some buildings, Excel will be fine. For smaller buildings, for larger buildings, probably it's going to be painful. So we created an online interface for managing the COBie data that supports import from Excel and IFC files. So you can edit all of that information about systems, types, components, locations. All of it is online. At the same time, we'll have the 3D interface based on the Navisworks, as you see probably here. You'll recognize this. And both interfaces actually integrate. They synchronize. So you can enter data in the 3D interface and then synchronized with the online application, or you have the data in online application synchronized back here. And you can attach documents, let's say PDF documents to specific items here in the 3D model, or you can add them online, and I believe about 80% of the project team members will use the online version because it's easier. Not everyone is comfortable with 3D, but 3D looks nicer if you, let's say, want to see for, let's say, where exactly this pipe and how it's located, so you can attach the document to it more accurately. The other benefits, obviously, is the easier to use online editing of all of this information. You don't have to exchange the Excel files, but at the same time, you can also establish the installation schedule. So since every activity that we have in COBie is being attached to specific elements, BIM elements of the model, you can see what is exactly has been installed, when it was installed, if the serial number was entered or not. So you can establish different data quality control procedures. So you can check for, and COBie has specific parameters in terms of what the whether the name should be unique or not, that all of the components belong to specific locations, and so there are rules, and we can check these rules and give you information about whether this model is ready to be used in O&M or not. So it's very important to pre-clean the data before you start pushing it to the O&M and FM phase. Now I wanted to just wanted to say that the first university that started supporting COBie was Indiana University, who put it in their BIM guidelines you see on the left. We also work right now in Texas A&M University, as I mentioned, that are also instituting support for COBie. And a few other universities are going to do that this year, as well as you probably know, Corps of Engineers has it already in their requirements. Veterans Administration and more owners are putting COBie as a standard part of data handover, not just the BIM addendum. It's a data handover guide. And here is also, as you see, LACD Building Information Modeling Standards that Mitch was involved with. So I would pass the microphone to Mitch so he can tell you a little bit more about LACD BIM guidelines.
Thank you. Thank you, Igor. Well, you know, we believe there are a few guidelines out there. There are too many guidelines who really have nothing to do with the BIM process. So LACCD, which is Los Angeles Community College District, the higher view by view, there was myself and my partner, and there was also Jonathan from Solibri and a couple of people from LACCD. We decided to sit down for 6 months and write these guidelines. So the guidelines have been published, they're available, and matter of fact, these guidelines are also been adopted now by Veteran Administration, and we believe there's a tremendous interest in these guidelines. And these guidelines were written from our experience. We have handled over 30 BIM projects, and we've learned from these projects. But there's a problem. There's one thing is writing these guidelines. There's another thing mandating these guidelines. We know of about 15 projects have been awarded right now. RFP have definitely defined the language of what we expect from the designers, what we expect from the contractor and the subcontractors. But unfortunately, no one is enforcing that. So less than 50% of the award winners are actually using BIM, fully using BIM. And this is the problem we face in this industry, that we are not enforcing these guidelines. And this is, I will believe, from the owner's point of view, that's the next step. So Igor, then we can continue.
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. This is the School of Cinema Arts at USC, University of Southern California. They just opened its door at the end of last year. And this is another project funded by George Lucas, similar to what we did at Letterman Digital Arts Center 8 years ago here in San Francisco. And we decided to take BIM even further. This was a very successful process. We're building phase 2. We're going to share that with you, which are another 4 buildings around the school here. So this is a Revit model showing you phase 2 surrounding phase 1, which is the film school. And we are taking that process into facility management. We have over 6,000 sensors already installed only in the buildings you see right now. And we are talking to Honeywell, who operates the facility, to be able to link into the sensors as well. But that's something that Igor is going to explain to you in a minute. And then move to the next slide, Igor. We did all the MEP, by the way. All the MEP are done using the software from the vendors like CAD, CADMAC, QuickPen. And what we're doing for the first time, because we have a great relationship, return trip back and forth to Revit technology and all the parameter information, we actually taking now, the owner is paying the engineers, mechanical engineers, to take the data, as-built drawings, and update the Revit MEP model to match the as-built drawings. So we're going to use for the first time Revit as a as-built model instead the vendor's model, which is the CAD-DOT, CAD-MAC, or whatever. So this is a new process. And the reason we're doing that, we invested that money up front because this is going to help facilitate the running of the facilities using EcoDomus. So this is just what you see here. This is, okay. Igor, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, get back to this idea that we mentioned before, is that this company and this product will focus specifically on 3D COBie compliant BIM enhanced by real-time operations data, so it can be integrated with the existing facility management software. In the case of USC, it's FAMIS, and building automation systems. In case of USC, it's Honeywell. But we obviously are open to all of the other building automation systems and facility management software packages. So this is the case study, again, continuing about USC. It's they have the CMMS software, FAMIS, which handles work orders, inventory control, asset management, preventive maintenance. They also have the electronic document management system called Meridian. It's not Meridian Prolog, it's another Meridian. And they manage floor plans, closeout documentations, cut sheets, O&M manuals, and the Honeywell energy management system with the EBI interface. Very highly sophisticated campus with a lot of these already has been settled. What we're doing right now is we are trying to link it all together. So there is the data exchange between the BIM model, CMMS system, Honeywell building automation system, and other packages like Meridian and FAMIS Visual Map and some other packages.
Igor, if I can interrupt, a second. When I brought first Navis Works to this country some 8 years ago, we couldn't be talking about BIM today if it wasn't for Navis. I see EcoDomus plays very similar role to what Navis did in assembling the 3D models. What we do here, we're going to be assembling inside EcoDomus all our management data, which already is in existence. We're not developing it into new in terms of running the facility in terms of data. The data exists. These packages already exist, very heavily embedded in particularly on the large projects. What we're going to do, we're just going to bring that data into EcoDomus and manipulate it within EcoDomus.
Interface of it, yes. And having the 3D interface, easily to navigate interface is quite important. So how what the technical stages of doing so is, first we start with Navisworks model itself, and as we mentioned before, our application works on top of it, so we can connect it to the Revit and exchange data between the two packages, from Revit to EcoDomus and from EcoDomus to Revit. We can also do the same with FAMIS. Right now we are switching from the link-based connection to the FAMIS to the API-based integration with those. Sorry for a little bit of technical jargon, but for those who want some advanced information, so I thought it may be interesting. Again, we export BIM data from EcoDomus into FAMIS and updating Revit from EcoDomus via API. With the Honeywell, right now we're exploring what's the best way to work with that information. Either it's going to be a live feed of data or interval-based data, or just historical data. So right now it's kind of the research and development on this part in terms of what's the best way of fetch the data. We, before our first experience with building automation systems was related to the Cisco Mediator. Probably some of you heard about Cisco Building Mediator, which is the component, the box that has support for both building standard protocols like BACnet, LANWorks, etc. At the same time, it supports the IP information. So that was pretty interesting product, and our first entry into this field was related to Cisco Mediator. But right now, I believe that working with Honeywell also directly can be very helpful to avoid some of the mishaps. That was the basic. Well, I think I missed a few slides. Just a sec. Yes, I think I missed this slide. Yeah, the idea is that this interface can have the data, as Mitch just said, from the standard packages, which is Revit, Bentley, Tekla, Cat5, CatDoc, Field 3D. All of it can be incorporated using the Navisworks data collection, I would say, utility. And what we like about it is obviously it's fast navigation and that is easy interface. We actually stripped, in our application, we stripped most of the functionalities that we don't need from Navisworks, such as clash detection or simulation or review. We don't need that. We need mostly the ability to link the models, and we need the ability to quickly navigate within it and have access to the properties of each of the objects.
And also, Igor, let me also remind you that Navisworks is very static. There's no two-way manipulation of data to Navisworks. You have to re-import the data back to Navisworks. It's a very difficult process to maintain the updated information, where in EcoDomus, we go bi-directional. If anything has been updated in EcoDomus, we can go back to Revit and sync Revit and update Revit from EcoDomus or the other way around. And it's very difficult to do this inside Navisworks, as it is today.
And here's the example for what we update in Revit is stuff like equipment numbers or some links or FM data. In the FM packages, and this is a snapshot of Famous, we update information that we get from using the COBie process from the BIM models. So you have the attributes, or you have the serial numbers, or some other information. So this is just the some of the fields that can be updated. Obviously, working with the facility management software packages closely, we can establish a tighter integration than just uploading of the COBie file. The simplest way to update those packages is obviously just by uploading the COBie Excel file. Not all of the FM software manufacturers are yet compliant. Some of them already are, like TMA systems, like Maximo, like Micromain, and a few others. Some of them are still waiting, when our owners, our clients will ask us, then we will make it compliant. So COBie is one way, direct API is another way. I think that was all of our presentation. We're pretty fast, so we are now probably open for questions.
Well, I can show them there. I have a model open of the entire phase 1 and phase 2 right now in Navisworks, so we can show them the size of the process of the project. So how do I get control of the? Nicole, can you tell me when I'm online?
Okay.
Okay. So does everybody see the screen now?
Not yet.
Igor, I cannot hear them, of course. Yes. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is combination of phase 1 and phase 2. This is taken directly out of Revit. I'm not going to show you the mechanical system because it's so huge, it's going to take a little time to redraw the screen. But this shows you the complexity. The building looked very beautiful, Spanish-looking type, but extremely high-tech. The structural design is very high-tech. There's a complete span across from one side to the other. But this is to show you the complexity of the building. And we have 6,000 sensors already installed in the film school, which is the biggest building with a courtyard here. And around that film school, we have 4 other buildings that they're under construction right now. And our process right now is to take those buildings that you see here and implement that into EcoDomus, and then work with Famous and try to run the facilities through the lifespan of these 5 buildings, and then later on we spread over to the rest of the campus, and those are the existing buildings. So it shows you the size of the project here.
Something that I would like to add about some of the difficulties that we encounter while working with these files, as I mentioned earlier, the disconnect between the FM and the designers is we're going through the model, and I see that the names and the types of the objects are named differently. So, for example, in Famous they're called SCX AHU1. In design it's called AHU1. And there are 3 different AHU1s in the model. So establishing the guidelines for the BIM is not really well, yeah, we'll try to refrain from.
Also, Igor, I apologize. I have to give credit to the architects. The architects, the UDG Urban Design Group, they provided the model. That's their Revit model. It's not a view-by-view model. Our role is BIM integrated facilitators for the owner, and we have nothing to do with this model. So it goes credit to UDG.
So the idea is that you start by writing the guidelines, not only the COBie specification that I mentioned before, because COBie specification describes how the data should be packaged and how it should be structured, but what kind of data should be there, it's something that the owners will decide on their own depending on the capabilities of the FM group. Because whether do you need all of the pipes and ducts to be passed over to the design or to the O&M model or not? What about the conduits and electrical? What about the different dampers and air handlers, etc.? So all of this is it requires the process where FM group sits together with the capital projects group on the owner side, with the architects and the contractors. So when we speak about IPD, this is going to be one of the parts of the IPD project when all of the participants will discuss how the data should be managed throughout the whole process. So they shouldn't be redone again and again at each of the phases.
And I'd like to add one thing at the close of this presentation, that BIM is really not about technology or about building. BIM, my experience in BIM is it's the people we work with. It's the collaborative effort of the team players, of the stakeholders. And I must say that the USC project includes the owner's involvement, very passionate involvement in this process. That's why we've been extremely successful. Because everybody really participated very actively in this process. So that really, it's very important to have that feature, all the participants be proactive in the entire BIM process.
Okay. Nicole, do we have any questions right now?
Yes. Somebody is asking that, or stating, I guess, that COBie seems to essentially be a standard list of documents to be turned over, as opposed to turning over the data values that describe all the systems and subsystems. Is that a correct assumption?
Well, actually, I can show you what the COBie file looks like, and it may give you a better idea of what data is actually passed over. Let me open the Excel file, and if you can pass the presentations to me, I can show what it is. Can you make me a presenter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Here's the COBie file, the sample file that you can all download from the Building Smart.
Igor, we don't see it yet.
Just a sec. I will share this Excel. Okay. Here.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. So this is the Excel file that you can download from the buildingsmart.com. So you see facility floors, spaces, zones, types of equipment, components of specific type, parameters of all of these components and zones, etc. They go all into attribute worksheets. So you can have tons and tons of properties, electronic properties of all of these equipment. So for example, for this AC unit, AC1, you have probably about 12 or 15 different properties. Obviously, taking this data directly from the model by utilizing smart family objects that you can get from some third-party provider gives you ability to pass those information electronically without ever typing it in. So it's all automatically can pass over to the O&M. Documents that you use, like submittals and product data and shop drawings, all of it, this worksheet, document worksheet, is basically your table of content. So you pass over to the owner this Excel file plus DVD with PDFs that contain the actual files. So right now, we're somewhere in between the completely parametric database passing over parametric databases and PDF documents. About 5-10 years ago, electronic handover meant you scan it all and you give this PDF file. Right now, we can pass some information as attributes if you have these smart libraries. and some information as PDFs. In 10 years from now, probably most of the information will be parametric.
But again, if I can add what Igor said, the most important thing now to move over to EcoDomus and facility management technology, we need to know exactly what is needed by facility managers. So what the USC is doing right now, they've done a series of interviews with both men and women who are running the facility on the campus. We have those interviews that were recorded, and we have learned tremendously from those interviews because we need to define exactly what kind of information do facility people need on site 24/7, and this is how we're going to develop our technology based on that, on those findings.
For example, the AC manager, those who are in charge of the air conditioning, he said that it's very important for him to track the CFM property of the design model to what he sees on the sensors data from the Honeywell system, because that's what he does right now, or tracing which VAVs related to this specific air handler unit. So this information is very difficult to see if you don't have the appropriate BIM model, or they spend time on trying to track that of the 2D drawings, paper drawings. So obviously that's where the benefits of the BIM is, in these small things. And the frontline personnel is who is exactly going to tell you this. You know, these AC managers or commissioning agents or the person who is managing these building automation systems. Usually they are actually the most eager to adopt this BIM for FM concept. Nicole, any more questions?
Yes, we have several. So there's a couple questions here talking about other related industry standards and collaboration research, including, of course, those of you in FIATech or working in FIATech. We are working on ISO 15926 initiative. And there's also a question about OSCAR, the Open Standards Consortium for Real Estate. So a couple of folks have asked, how do these align, and is there work being done to align them?
I would recommend to. I spoke to Bill East about that. Bill East is he works for Corps of Engineers, and he is the author of technical specification for COBie. He is definitely, since this program is managed by Building Smart, I think the best way is to have Bill East to present maybe about the alignment of this or harmonization of the efforts, because definitely they are looking into that. COBie, for example, COBie US version harmonized with international standard called FM10. So December COBie Challenge, for example, was about harmonization with the FM10 International Facility Management Standard. So I believe that OSCAR and ISO 1596 will be the next some level of, and since COBie is also IFC-based, since there is a harmonization effort going between IFCs and 1596, I'm sure there will be some level of harmonization.
And that should also apply to AIA in DC as well. You know, they have come out with their own standards, and I think we have to align with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nicole?
Okay, thank you. Someone wants to know if Honeywell and other manufacturers of control systems, if that information or their information flows or goes back into the building information modeling. For example, controllers and sensors and actuators and things of that nature.
What was the question about again?
Well, I think the question was, did Honeywell's control system information flow and go back into the BIM? This question came in while you were giving the presentation, but I think at a higher level, the question is, is what you've got here incorporating the systems and components from companies like Honeywell that provide the controllers, sensors, actuators, and et cetera?
Well, Nicole, we are in the process of discussing. We just had a BIM workshop with USC where Honeywell was present, and we are under discussion right now how we're going to work together and how we're going to link the data. At first, I think most of these companies, Honeywell, Johnson Control, they kind of felt threatened because they kind of control that industry, but they see now they have to open up more. And so there is a positive discussion going on between Honeywell and EcoDomus.
And they have excellent tools like, for example, Niagara and J's system of software and hardware that are enabling to read using some standards, read the data. So I'm sure we'll find some ways of incorporating this into the model.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to mention as well, because we have an individual from the Construction Specifications Institute on, that they also have OmniClass, and that they are also working on aligning the names of the objects and properties, working with Oscar and other groups on the table. So I want to make sure we did not omit them either. So there's a lot of work being done by a lot of the not-for-profit organizations in specific niches of the industries. I know for ISO 15926 that originated in the oil and gas industry. It was primarily driven from there, and it's expanding. You know, and as they get more fully developed, they're harmonized with like standards. Next question, how does COBie help operations and maintenance for the building automation systems? Is there any standard which can represent the information about the sensors, controllers, and other components in the building automation systems like HVAC?
Well, all of the components of the building have specific set of attributes. So as I was just showing you, for example, this radiant heater, you can find the attributes here. And so what COBie helps you is to pass this information over with the minimal loss of the information between the different participants, and to get it electronically into the final model and be used at the end. I mean, theoretically, this can all be done right now, but it will cost enormous amount of money. What COBie does, it basically standardizes the process and makes sure that it's the most efficient process that can be done. So that's what it is about.
Well, but that's the information that flows into EcoDomus. The question was about between EcoDomus and the sensors.
Yeah. All right. So what's the next question?
A question came. It said that the spreadsheet looks like an index of all the information that or stuff that goes into building a building. Since you can, anybody can take a building construction experience, can make up one for a given project. What does the COBie standard add to the spreadsheet?
Well, it tells you, hypothetically, what it gives you, instead of integrating all of the BIM software with all of the project control software and all of the facility management software packages, it creates your standards. So if you're an owner and you're saying, hey, this is my standard, COBie standard, all of your contractors will know what exactly the worksheets that they need to prepare for you. And so everybody's speaking the same language. Why the standards are created? In order for them to speak the same language. So it's basically a standard for electronic data handover. Yes, you can create Excel files, but these Excel files will be unique to your organization. So every time a new contractor will start working for you, you will need to explain, and they will need to repackage their data, you know. So, but if they have a standard template, they will know how to package the data.
Thanks. 5 more I have. Is this compatible with SmartPlant 3D or PDS models?
I don't know. I know that most of the BIM packages, such as Revit, Bentley Architecture, Graphisoft ArchiCAD, and a few other packages, they are compliant. I don't know about SmartPlant 3D.
Okay. Question. I think different stakeholders previously had different practices for their processes. How did you manage the differences to implement BIM, and what were the major hindrances for the implementation of BIM?
Why, his question is implementation BIM into FM or BIM in general?
I think it's BIM in general, and just looking at it from the fact that with different companies and different projects, you're going to have different practices and different work processes, and so how does that affect you know, how you get the full building information model?
Well, the BIM starts at the design development stage today. Well, you see, in the past, we used to do all the modeling in view by view and prepare the 2D documents to a BIM process. That was a process at the Letterman Digital Arts Center. Everything came AutoCAD 2D, and we had to build a 3D smart model. What we see now, the 95 or even more % of work we get, the models are prepared by the architects. And then we have to also understand there are design models, there are design intent BIM models, and there's also there's a construction BIM models. So then we update those models to what we call the construction models. With a lot of the data, it moves over to fabrication software. But what we're doing now, as I said earlier, we're taking that fabrication process back into BIM models. So the Revit technology, as we see it right now, will become as-built master model. So there are different stages of modeling, and there's a confusion going on right now. What is a BIM model? And that's what has to really be well defined. What do we expect from the designers, and what would we expect from the contractors, and what are the deliverables to the owner?
And that's why BIM guidelines are created by different organizations, because probably they overlap, and 80% of them overlap, but there are some uniqueness to each large organization, like maybe Indiana universities and LACCD guidelines. They are slightly different, but probably most of it is the same, right?
Well, lots of information, that's parametric information in the families, which are created by the architect. A lot of it's redundant in terms of facility management. So we transferred a lot of the parametric information from Revit to EcoDomus. It was a 120 megabyte file, and Igor, tell me if I'm not right. Most of it, a lot of it, it's redundant. So we need to go back and start editing that parametric information. That's just and you leave what's needed for the facility management teams.
Yeah, so that's related. Yeah, so that's related to the guidelines that the specific facility management group of the owner will write. So probably Corps of Engineers guidelines about what they consider as the O&M BIM will be different from LACCD O&M BIM.
Right. And that's the problem we have with Navis. If we use Navis for that purpose, there's so much information, parametric information inside Navis, that you have to live with it because it's not editable. You know, you cannot remove any of the information that comes into Navis. And this is why we thought EcoDomus would be able to filter a lot of that information and then save the information that is applicable to FM.
Yeah, I want to just quickly add that someone did comment also and wanted to add that the COBie standard also defines exactly what data is required and what is not required. So that was just kind of a follow-on to that.
Well, that's correct, but yet most of designers might not even be familiar with the COBie standards. So we have to move that process down to the design level, and design development level.
Okay. I do have another question here about, there seems to be, well, the question is if a facility manager wants to create a work package, let's say relative to inspecting a certain system, will he do that through TOCMO, EcoDomus, or Navisworks? So I think there's a little confusion about these products and, you know, what's proprietary and whatnot. And I guess I do want to say, as a fee attack and a membership, we are, you know, not endorsing any given product. We do these webinars for informational purposes and just to educate the industry on different options. So if you want to explain maybe in a little more detail the differences about TOCMO and EcoDomus, and then Navisworks, I believe, is an Autodesk product, correct?
Yeah.
Today it is Autodesk product, yeah.
Yeah. TOCMO is the design and construction phase of the process. So what we work on preparing, maintaining the data using the COBie standard. So it's about from the design to construction, and it ends when the model is created and it's O&M ready. But then when O&M starts, then you need to have the EcoDomus to integrate this model with the facility management packages, with the building automation systems, with sensors, smart meters, and all of that infrastructure, because the O&M process and construction process are very different, so the systems should be different. The way they operate should be different. That's why we created this distinction between.
Well, all three packages are standalone, independent packages. They don't rely on each other. But I must say that if you go through the TOCMO process and you prepare the data, then it facilitates moving the data over to EcoDomus, and it'll be much less work within EcoDomus. But although all of these packages are standalone packages, you don't need them together in order to operate.
Thank you. When the Revit model is updated, what is updated? The parameters or the geometry or both?
It's a very good question.
Parameters.
Yeah, but it's a very good question. Everything is updated. Everything is traced over. Too bad we don't have no time to show it to you, but everything is traced over, parameters updated. But let me make a cautious remarks here what happens in the industry right now. When the subs are preparing the models for fabrication, they just put enough data into these models to fabricate, if they fabricate from plasma cutting machine on the sheet metal side, piping and plumbing not so much. So what happens now, what we find now, the owners, they think they're getting smart data from the general contractor, but it's not the case. A lot of the data is stripped is because it takes more memory. There's a lot more information available to be thrown into that data, but it's not being used properly. So by the end, what the owner gets, all the construction models as built models, geometry is accurate, but the data is not there. So what we're doing right now, we're taking whatever data is in that model and we're tracing over that data, the geometry, and we're copying the parameters as well into Revit at the moment. That's the first phase, and in the future, when Autodesk is going to address the fabrication process using the Revit technology, I think all these third-party software, CAD-DEC, CAD-MAC, they eventually will be obsolete.
Well, it's very bold prediction.
Well, no, they'll be obsolete in the sense of going through that process, tracing over. We'll be able to do that all inside Revit, or you're going to do everything and stay inside the third package, the third-party packages. I apologize. I don't mean obsolete to go out of business, but we're not going to spend that time tracing over.
Okay. How early in the building phase should facility managers be consulted on the kinds of data they would like to use from this type of BIM technology?
Ooh,
I would say as early as possible.
Yeah, because the naming convention, as I mentioned, because of the data, this process starts very early, so they should be driving this actually. Right now, it's not the case though.
Well, same thing what we used to do, a coordination process on a job site. We had everybody on board, except we didn't have fire sprinklers on board, and we didn't have framers on board, and it was a big mistake. Everything gets coordinated, and then the fire sprinkler comes in there, and it creates a total chaos. So now we got to have all stake players on board, and we have the fire sprinkler people on board from the beginning, and we have the framers on board from the beginning. So we have everybody on board right from the beginning.
Great. In COBie, or in the COBie standard, how is the structural design and detailing information handled? For instance, for reinforcement of concrete detailing.
Usually, I don't think much of the structural actually in the COBie information, because that's not what the O&M facility managers deal with. That's why, I mean, it's a part of the process. Yes, you can put it and you can establish it. It's, again, you see, it's all about the specific FM manager's requirements. If they care about the structural information, yeah, go ahead and use it. But in the sample files that I've seen so far, it's mostly about MEP, HVAC stuff, so it's very rarely structural.
If I can add on to that, nothing to do with FM, I mean, on the USC project, the engineers, we insisted they use Tekla, for example, for very good reason. And when we delivered the model, was the engineer had all the shop drawings, including all the rebars. Every single rebar was modeled. It was part of the process. It was prefabricated, delivered to site, reduced almost $900,000 in cost. And everything came out of the design model. So we delivered to the general contractor design model with ready for fabrication, and the shop drawings were no longer necessary to be provided by the fabricators. And we're going to see the same trend is going to be happening in the sheet metal and plumbing as well. It's coming soon. The designers would take a lot more responsibility. They would spend a lot more time producing a complete design. I would say almost ready for fabrication.
Great. And final question. This person's interested in the contents of the interviews. and wants to know if those interviews are published.
The interviews that we at USC. Oh, sorry.
I don't know. We'll ask them. Probably. I cannot promise on their behalf, but we will ask them.
All right.
I suggest we do more interviews with other, other facility managers out there, collect them, and then write guidelines on the BIM side. Because right now we have guidelines on the pre-construction design, construction documents, but we do not have really proper guidelines in the using BIM as an FM process.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We've just come to the end of our hour. I really want to thank Mitch and Igor for presenting this very valuable information. And I want to remind everyone, I've been getting quite a few messages about this, that yes, we are recording the presentation. We will be syncing it with the slides, and we'll be posting it in the media library later this week on the FIATech site. You'll also receive an email tomorrow with the link to that presentation. And as a final note and a final plug, I just want to remind everyone that FIATech's 10th anniversary technology conference and showcase is coming up March 29th to the 31st in Austin, Texas. Gentry Lee will be the keynote speaker from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. And we do have from our homepage, we now have the preliminary program, which is almost a finalized program with all the presentations and the like available. So please register and plan to join us at the end of March. And thanks again, and we'll hopefully talk to many of you next Tuesday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.